Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our webinar this afternoon. The truth is out there, exploring a 9.2 upgrade. My name is Mike Guerin, and I will be the main presenter today. I am joined today on Mission Control by Doug McCarthy. Doug is an owner and also the VP of Sales and Operations for TeamCain. So, by way of introductions, and today's Halloween. If you watch TV, there's always a Halloween version show. So this is our, according to the wonderful talent that we have in our marketing group, we have Special Agent G, or Special Upgrade Agent G, which is myself, Mike Guerin, on here. I am the president and owner of TeamCain. I've been in JD Edwards for 35 years now. Spent about 10 years working directly at JD Edwards, including being the Director of Customer Services or Consulting Services for Canada, and also the One World Launch Manager for Canada, and had a lot less gray hair before then. I'm also an official Quest Ambassador, a Vendor Advisory Committee member, and a huge supporter of Quest, as anybody that has ever talked to me knows as well. Special Upgrade Agent M, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I think first I want to comment that I think the glasses look a lot better on you than they do on me. I think mine need to be a little smaller, but that's just I've been with I've been with TeamCain for 3+ years. Prior to that, I was on the corporate IT side of Damon Worldwide. Overall, 17 years of experience and ready to go.
Cool. Thank you, sir. So what we're going to cover off, UDOs that come in peace and want to perfect your upgrade is the first one. And we're starting off with UDOs because as you're looking at upgrades, there's a lot to like in there, and that can be a benefit for an upgrade. We'll be looking at something that we talk about with our customers a fair bit, which is a pre-upgrade plan. Spending a bit of time in building the upgrade business case for going to 9.2, and some ideas that might help to launch your upgrade into orbit. And I'm an accountant by background, and Doug is a technical person, so you can obviously tell that the creative powers from the marketing side have done a wonderful job in making this a little Halloween specific and space specific. So user-defined objects. That and cloud are probably all the buzz out there these days. So what's new with the 9.2 versions, or improved with 9.2, in terms of user-defined objects and other capabilities? Personal forms is one. If you're not familiar with it, that gives you the ability to move fields around. If you're looking at address book, for example, and doing setup, information's on multiple tabs. Personal forms gives you the ability to move information between tabs and consolidate things. We normally say if you want to get on your user's Christmas card list, work with them on this. They will love you forever. Springboard's analytics and the two down from their watch list alerts are all part of the UX1 and the roles that are delivered that you can get directly from Oracle. So the springboard's on the right-hand side for letting you get into specific programs. The analytics in the middle, which gives you specific analytics and can also be tweaked, and the queries underneath them can be changed to provide different information. And the watch list, which, you know, from my perspective, watch lists and Cafe One, now with personal forms as well, are probably the big ones that are out there. Cafe One is one. Doug and I just came out of probably 4 user groups in across North America that we've done the last couple of weeks. And we asked about Cafe One. It's so highly underutilized, it's almost scary. So enterprise search is something that came out in tools release 9.2.1.4 and was extended in 5. If you're not familiar with it, that allows you, where you normally put in a fast path to start typing, and it will actually show you the tasks that match that. And from the core enterprise search page allows you to search across the data that you have in the organization, and also have pop-ups and selections on there to go directly into things. So if you start typing bicycle, it'll show you vendors, it'll show you inventory items, could show you work orders that are tied to it, and have the option to get directly into some of the details that are in there. Orchestrator, formerly called Internet of Things Orchestrator, now called Orchestrator, and also now bundled as part of your foundation, is really the solution that a lot of organizations should be looking at, probably in conjunction with AIS and the capabilities there, for being your integration engine. We're not going to be getting into a lot of details on UDOs in this presentation, but as noted at the bottom, we did a full-based one talking about security and doing a show and tell on that. If you're interested in taking a look at it, it is on our website under recorded webinars. So what exactly are UDOs, or user-defined objects? UDOs include queries, grid formats, Cafe One, Enterprise One pages, OneView reporting, and watch lists. Key concepts on this, particularly with UX1 roles, these roles can be downloaded directly from the Oracle website and it's installed, so you can start to play around with it. By default, UDOs are secured. So when you download them, you don't have immediate access to it. You have to enable it. And Star Public can be used for many. You can also do it on a user or role basis. When these are being created within the organization, ones that are created need to be pushed up, i.e. request to be published. Then somebody needs to review them and approve them to allow others to use them. You can also move these between environments, and you can export and import them. And the majority of the security for this is handled in work with user-defined objects and the form and row exits. Part of the reason we bring up UDOs is there's so much there, particularly with watch lists, Cafe One, grid format capabilities, and some of the E1 pages and the composed pages that are provided as part of the rules. Typically, an upgrade has been a same old for most organizations. We'll be getting into that like for like or a technical upgrade. There's an awful lot here that should be on the plate for organizations running Enterprise One to look at to help justify the upgrade and to factor into the upgrade plans. So the main security areas when you're looking at user-defined objects, there's feature security, that's basically turning the feature on or off for the organization. Action security, so who can create their own, who can request to publish, and who can modify shared ones. View security, so who can work with and view the shared user-defined objects. And content security, and content security is only applicable for Composite Application Framework or Cafe One UDOs. So there is security things that you need to think about as part of this, including enabling and turning on for different roles. If you're a user that's looking at it, we've got an example of the query manager here. There are icons that will show up according to what they're trying to do. It's a little bit different if they want to create their own composite page, for example, but you can save as, so give it a different name. If it's been allowed to you, you can request to publish. You can also reserve one to make changes to it, and you can delete them. So just a bit of a view as to what the users would see. So what's the impact and influence of user-defined objects? The personalization is one of the first things that you get. For your users, they can create their own watch lists. They can create their own personal forms. They can create Cafe One. So you're really putting the power, this is what's referred to as the citizen developer side, into the hands of your citizens or your end users. There's obviously some caveats around that. You don't necessarily want to turn all of this loose on a rookie AP clerk, but the capabilities are there for the users to be able to do this themselves. Things like working with the watch list, removing form clutter with the forms personalization, keeping users from having to do the form hyperloop or going through the tunnel to bounce around between menus and screens are all nagging user issues that you can solve with these capabilities. The flip side to that is if you're solving this by user-based tool, you are reducing the involvement from your IT staff who can and should be working on other more pressing items for things like forms, reports, and queries. When you put it all together with Enterprise One pages, with the UX1 roles, with the enterprise search, the overall UX improvements, what you really end up with are happy users, and that is the case. We've had a number of situations where we've exposed the capabilities to organizations that were not aware of them, in particular the business users and management, and the reaction has been, wow, more than anything else. So, boo, what do you need to watch out for? Well, the security mechanism with user-defined objects is new. They've packaged up a lot of what would be in other areas and set it all up under the work with user-defined objects. for the most part. So if you're working with it, you need to take the time to learn how it works and learn how to work through the promotion and pushing out process. Most of these are user tools, but they do require knowledge to be able to make them work. Hop down to the fourth one, forms personalization. It's a great idea. We would expect to see some more extensions to it and some more control in the future. And the control in particular, there's no security on it. So if somebody can do forms personalization, they can do forms personalization, which could include removing fields that they shouldn't remove. So things like Cafe One, you need to know the application, the form, and oftentimes the version that you want to link to. So there's some intrinsic knowledge in knowing how to find out that information. Our normal recommendation when we're working with clients on this is pick an area that's ripe for improvement. Could be in logistics, maybe your transportation people, could be your accounts payable group, it could be procurement. But pick an area where some of these tools could be beneficial for them and start to work with some strong users in there, using that as a test bed, doing your learning, figuring out what it means to your organization, and rolling out from there. Continue on a bit longer, Doug, and then we can stop and see if there's any questions. So when we're talking with customers, oftentimes it's around an upgrade. One of the things that we strongly recommend is doing, in essence, a pre-upgrade plan for it. And we'd like to get into some details on that. The whole idea behind a pre-upgrade plan is getting a lot of the information in advance that, one, you typically need to present to manage it, to justify the upgrade, and two, coming up with the business benefits and what's involved with it so that you understand it, the business understands it, and management understands it. It helps you to answer the questions of what are you actually going to implement and why are you implementing it? Tied to that is what benefits will you actually get out of it? People that sign the checks tend to be interested in minor little things like, oh, what's it going to cost us? Well, if you've done the pre-planning properly, you should have a good idea as to what that will be internally and externally. And what resources will you need for that? Largely that's human, but that could involve standing up some more virtual servers, using some of the Oracle Cloud capabilities to start off on it, so some of the technical items as well. So generally speaking, when we're talking to customers about upgrades, one of the questions we ask them is, first of all, how long ago was it? 2 years ago? Maybe 2 to 5 years ago? More than 5 years ago? We're also interested in knowing for the last one and the ones before that, was it technical only? In other words, like for like? Was it largely technical, but you did some business stuff or started to dabble in some of the tools capabilities? Or was it a full-on upgrade, so kind of greenfielding it? If you look at the last upgrade or the upgrade you're about to embark on, from a process side for getting here, it was likely first envisioned about 3 years ago. From a planning side, it was likely forecast for the spend, the need, the resources, and what was going to be involved about 2 years ago. The budgeting for it probably happened within the last year. And if it's gone on this year or is about to go on, the staffing and real enactment for it likely happened this year. It's often part of a strategic plan to keep current and also to extend your business technology capabilities. Heading into the upgrade, you would have had to make a decision about what type of upgrade that will be, and that's going to affect a lot of other things. You would have also had to look at it and say, are there strategic things that we want to consider for this? We might not be standing up mobile or starting up business intelligence or using OBR for more standardized reporting or extending our asset maintenance setup or setting up employee or vendor self-service. But it might have been done with the premise that it is the foundation to let you get there in second stages. And one of the things we'll be talking about is an upgrade is a turn of the wheel, it's an event in itself, but it's a turn of the wheel for an upgrade, and there will be another one coming. So it might have been just setting up for an upgrade in 2018 or 2019 where you're actually going to start to make use of some of these capabilities. Generally speaking, from our perspective, these are the three types: like for like, In other words, a pure technical upgrade. That could be tools and or apps. Could be like for like plus low-hanging fruit. So taking advantage of some new features. Could be from the app side, could be from the tool side. Could be business process re-engineering. It's the most complex, but particularly if you're very old, sometimes it's the best way to get rid of the mods if you've got extensive invasive ones, and to take a strong, real look at what you could be doing if it's been a long time and you implemented just for the sake of getting off your old system. One of the comments we'd like to make to people, nobody likes legacy systems. The reality is if the last 3 upgrades that you've done are largely like for like, or it's been at least 7 years since you've done a real upgrade, odds are you're pretty close to running a legacy system because you have not at least investigated what's out there now and how you could be improving things. So what are some of the pros and cons and considerations? For like, the obvious pro is it's a lot less invasive. There's a lot less outside consulting. Typically, it's a CNC involvement. The cons, well, you're not really getting any benefit for the business as such. You normally get a pretty unenthusiastic response from the business and tech team for the steps that are involved because it's just more same old, same old. Reality from what we've seen as well is going from that to looking to do at least some extensions. It's really not that far off. If a technical upgrade is a 2, 3, maybe a 4-month process, adding a like for like on, depending upon how you do it, might extend it another month, maybe 2 months, but not a lot. Things to think about. If you're just going to do another technical upgrade, how well is JD Edwards accepted right now? If you had a lot of muttering and dissatisfaction from the users, another technical upgrade is not going to help that. If it's been 3 years since you've done the last one, doing another technical one really is not going to do much of anything. Do you have unaddressed requests from the business? Are they saying, we need to start to get into mobile. We want to be able to start to make use of watch lists, directed work, get some efficiency. Navigation sucks right now, the way that we're doing it through the menu structure. There's features and functions that we could really make use of for it. The other side to that is what kind of budget is going to be acceptable. And budget is just one half the equation, the other half being benefits. And what other competing projects do you have that you need to balance with? Sorry, everybody, just having a sip of coffee here. Adding in low-hanging fruit on top of it, well, you're actually giving something back to the business. It could be looking at areas where Cafe One could benefit. It could be looking at enabling watch lists in selected areas to make them more directed in their work and more focused. It could be looking at putting something like health and safety in to help out, which would be not terribly invasive. It could be using or extending your use of E1 pages. It allows, particularly with the structure and the way the technology works, a fair amount of business change and benefit without a huge resource or cost hit. And if you're doing things to make the users happy and make them more efficient, you're going to get a lot more enthusiasm. One of the issues, and we've seen this clearly working with a number of customers, is deciding on what fruit should be included. If E1 pages are bananas and Cafe One is apples, what's in your trick or treat bag and what do you want to pull out and make use of? The demand from the users, if you expose them to this, will be pretty high. So part of the process is working through the scope and getting them to understand. You do need to invest a little bit more internally and possibly externally to build up the skills that you need to make use of this. Considerations, again, how far back are you? What kind of demand has come in from the last time? If you're taking the time to talk to the users, if you're tracking requests that are coming in, if you're tracking where the senior management would like to go competitively within the business, you should have a pretty good sense for it. You want to look at how invasive the mods you have are. Anything that you can do to get away from them will be beneficial, but it will be a balancing act. When you're looking at low-hanging fruit, and sometimes this is extensions into new modules, sometimes they can be pretty far-reaching. If you're not using job cost, if you're not using self-service at all, if you're using purchasing only internally and you've not pushed out to requisition or bid tendering, It can be fairly large. Doesn't mean that it shouldn't be included, but it could be stretching the definition of low-hanging fruit a little bit. What we see very rarely is full business process reengineering. So as you would expect, that's a much bigger slug. You'll typically get a lot more benefit from it. You're taking a fresh start at it, and you can look at everything across the board. So tools, platform, mobile, integration, interfaces. You're basically treating it as if you were replacing your ERP. You're replacing it with JD Edwards. Most often it works if you're very far behind and it's been a long time since you've looked at your processes and there's been significant business change. It's the one opportunity to let you start from fresh. The downside, as would be expected, there's a lot of time, there's a fair amount of investment, and a lot of resources that you need to pull in. Quite often, because of the scope of the change, you're going to need to pull in a lot more resources from outside to help out with the skills, the knowledge, and best practices. And with the amount of effort, you will probably be looking at backfilling some internal resources. Because it's a longer process, it tends to get chunked up because of things like seasonal nature. So your accountants are not available for 6 months at year end. You have 2 busy periods to support shipments to your customers for Christmas and Easter, for example. And because it's a long project, it can be fairly draining on the people involved. Things you need to think about: how far back are you on the benefits that you could be getting from technology? What's changed on the business side? What's changed in the competitive landscape side? Do you have the right people internally and access to the right people externally to be able to do this properly? And is the business ready for it? Ready emotionally, ready from a skill side, and ready from the size of check that you're going to need to cut to make it happen. The pre-upgrade analysis, what you're looking is you want to take the time to explore the features and capabilities. Look at the wish lists that are out there from the users. Actually take the time, if you don't already, to wander around and say, what ticks you off? What are you doing off system? What makes you grit your teeth when you come in to work in JD Edwards? Look at your existing customizations. What we find helps out with this an awful lot is if you've got a systems diagram and process maps that cross not only JD Edwards, but anything that reaches into or out of it. When you put all that together and look at what you have and where you could go and where the benefits are, you've got a great start for the benefit statement and pre-staging what you're going to need for the budget side. You could also take it as an opportunity to take a longer-term view and get a sense of where the business is going. If they are expecting to open operations in 3 new states or 2 new countries or get into a multilingual situation, or there's a competitive situation where you need to get stickier with your customers, that's all things that you want to factor in and see how you can help the business. It's also a great opportunity to go back, if you've got this, and hopefully you do, look at what you learned from the last time. So from the wrap-up that you did, the debrief, and see what you can apply there. The biggest thing with this, when we're presenting at conferences, when we're talking to customers and about what they can be doing with it, we so often that people, particularly from the business side, have not been exposed to what is out there. So they don't know what the benefits are. If your role is understanding what's available in 9.2 from a technology foundation for IT, from user-defined objects for watch lists and EnterpriseOne, help them to understand it. That's part of what they need to be able to do. We see as well, particularly if it's clients that have been around for a while, they got a lot of data sitting out there. So when did you last do a cleanup of that? How old is it? If you've had process changes and people going in with a SQL Server or just going in through what used to be called DFU and make updates to it, you could have issues out there. If you've got stuff like that or significant business changes, we've seen very often that things like integrity reports sometimes stop being done because it takes too long to run and resolve. Most clients have tag files in the 55 through 59 range, and they're often forgotten, so they're out there just accumulating like you would not believe. We've seen 100 megabyte files out there in this kind of range. There are performance implications as well. The more data is hanging out there, the longer queries will run, the longer online processes will run. You have to remember as well that if users are reticent about losing their data, you can move it out of production, move it into archive, make it absolutely accessible to them while keeping your production system nice and clean. The general sense is, storage is cheap. You can throw a lot of disk on there, and performance not so much so. Retrofitting and mods analysis retirement. We have worked with clients where we've asked them what kind of mods they've done, and it's been 2 small screen tweaks, and that's wonderful. The other end of the spectrum are people that have built in an awful lot of functionality that's core to the business. What you really need to be able to do is find out how much you really need for that. Case in point, if you did this when you first switched over to JD Edwards and it's been 8 years, things have changed. And it's not uncommon for clients going on a system originally to acquiesce to user requirements, whether they're really required or not. So take the time to compare what you're doing to new functionality and modules that are available and features and capabilities, and to how much they're really needed and used. Cost justify it. Put a price tag on it and have the business justify what they're going to get out for keeping those modifications. You have to start out by knowing what you have and then understanding what the impact is. The simplified upgrades that are out there now can certainly help out. Oracle's done a great job of that. The downside that we see is if it's taking you away from investigating whether you really need them or not, it's just making it easier to avoid the obvious work that you need to do. There are tools out there, object comparisons, etc., in the later releases that let you see how much they're used, how often, and by who. There's also solutions from ones like our friends at DWS that will inspect, analyze, and give you some very good information as to how much it's used, how invasive they are, how big the size and scope is. So there are things that are out there that can help out in determining which mods you need to carry forward, but take the time to investigate them. From a bottoms-up perspective as well, you can be looking at things like Orchestrator. Can you make use of that? Can you retire third-party solutions for integration and point systems across the board? We've seen some great examples of AIS or application interface server being used to handle some of this and data inloads and uploads. Could you be using OVR to replace some custom or off-system reporting? And again, this is bringing the technology to the business so that they understand some of it. What about new features and functions? Health and safety, mobile extensions. If you're using third-party software for things like Form Solution, can you replace it with BI Publisher? I know we've worked with a lot of clients switching them over. What are you hearing from the users? What are they unhappy about? What are the inefficiencies? Cafe One can probably help out. Can you road test it? Watch lists, if users are not familiar with them, can really be a killer app. Personal forms, can you use that to replace some forms modifications that you've done? What can you look at for EnterpriseOne pages for enabling mobile access? Salespeople on the road. Mobile for purchase order entry and approval. Work order time entry. There's a lot of efficiencies out there. The bottoms-up approach is looking at the capabilities and exposing them to the business so that they have an appreciation as to where they could be going with it. The costs involved, theoretical or hypothetical. There's time. You need to do the overall scoping. Doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. Even if you don't think you're changing things, things have changed. You need to allow for the testing. Whatever has changed, be it small or large, and there will be some, could be just the user interface. You need to allow time for training, and you need to allow time for the cutover, the go live, which could include data conversions. You could be spending money on licenses. As most of you are probably aware, OneView reporting does require licensing at a minimum of foundation. And if you want to make use of some of the OVR pre-built forms and capabilities, you need to buy the licenses for those areas like financials or inventory. You could be needing to stand up new hardware. Could just be virtual, and you might be fine, but you need to investigate it. You need to look at the resources you need for the project team, resources to help out with training, external consulting help that you might have, and also don't forget about a contingency fund and also contingency time in the project plan. The scariest thing you could have for an upgrade plan is one that has no slack in it, that has you going live one day before when you really need to go live, and you're just hoping like hell that nothing happens. Resource, we've touched on this a lot, but you need to look at the time that's going to be required for the software upgrade. That could include infrastructure, could be standing up an AIS server, software functional setups that you need. If you're replacing your solutions with Orchestrator or with AIS or BI Publisher with Createform, other things where you've got integration that is going to stand, you need to be able to have the time to go in and see whether that's changed. Are there prerequisites like it's running on SQL Server right now and you need to update the version, will it work? Looking at internal versus external resources. Really, the key to this comes down to the scope definition and making sure that your end user testing is factored in there and everybody's going to be comfortable. If you're doing this properly, you also have a steering committee that's in place that's meeting periodically, reviewing things and being the tiebreaker for issues that come up or requests for more funds or time, and a project manager. Doesn't matter how big or small it is, there's a lot of moving pieces and people that need to be coordinated and communicated out. So you need somebody in that role to make sure it's all happening. Let's just take a quick stop there, Doug. Interested in seeing if there's any questions that have come in yet?
No, Mike, you must have explained everything in complete detail. No questions at this time.
Excellent, Smithers. Thank you so much. All right, well, we'll just continue bopping on then. Do you have your Halloween costume on today, Doug? Are you going out as Conan or the Hulk as usual?
I'm going to say no Halloween costume at the moment and leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. I'll look for your Twitter account later.
I don't want to spoil the surprise.
Excellent. Okay. One of our absolute favorite client quotes is this one, and we think it says so much, and this is part of our mantra. There's no such thing as a technology project. There are only business projects with a high reliance on technology. The real key there, and when we're looking at justifying or planning for an upgrade, this turns it around from being a technology exercise to a business exercise that has a technology impact or components. So technology is there to serve the business, not the other way around. If you look at it as it's a business project that needs to rely on technology, you're looking at it from the lens of the business and how it can help them out. So building a case for it, the ideal project, it could be an upgrade, a new module, a full implementation, just the final go live. It really should be a non-event. Motherhood statement number 2, business and technology planning is a wheel, not a report or a one-time event. Organizations that get the best out of their business technology are ones that will cycle through this more frequently than others. So get the continuous improvement. Planning should trump enactment every single time. It's the old measure 3 times and cut once. The planning side also, I wouldn't say forces or imposes, but gets out there that planning involves the business and talking to the business about what will benefit them, and then factoring that into what you're going to deliver with the technology upgrade. Again, it sounds like motherhood, but reality should rule. And whoever has the responsibility for the project manager, the executive sponsor, if the idea is that we're starting September 1st and we're going live December 31st, come hell or high water, you need to make sure that your project plan and what you're looking to accomplish will be able to be supported by it. Generally speaking as well, we're talking about an upgrade project, but really it applies to any business technology project. When we're talking with customers, we think of the 3 pillars or the 3 parts of the triangle or the 3 legs to the stool. Any one of these should be paramount and cannot budge, and the other ones are ones that can move. If budget or the funds available are the key, then your resources or your timeline need to accommodate it. That could mean a longer project to allow for lower level of staff involvement, or it could mean that you're going to bring in more internal resources that are not costed to stick within the budget. If the resources are the key, then you might need more budget for the internal resources or external that you need, or you might need to push out the timeline. If the timeline is the key, and that's normally the starting point, what we see most often is the timeline or the budget is the key. If the timeline is the key, you have to be live by a certain date. You've been acquired, and you need to cut over. You might need to flex the budget, and or you might need to flex the resources. The main point here is when you're getting into the start of the project, somebody should be asking the executive sponsor, the management, which is the thing that cannot move. And then the others are the ones that will flex around it. Selling your upgrade internally. If we're talking to somebody, the starting point for upgrades is typically the technology group. One of the biggest things we will say is if you're thinking of this upgrade in terms of bits and bytes and technology, please stop. You will be presenting this to business leaders in some way, shape, or form. There's somebody at the top of the chain that's going to sign off on this. If you want to do the best job for your organization and for what you think the technology can do for the business, think like a business person. So what are the efficiencies that can be gained? Watch lists are a cool tool, but frame it in terms of what it's going to mean for the business. How will it improve their lives? How will menu changes, E1 pages, UX1 roles help out for the business? What older processes do you have that can be improved? That could be with Cafe One, could be with BI Publisher tied to Cafe One, so an AP clerk can see the scanned vouchers right there. It could be new modules. If you are got a third party or spreadsheets for health and safety, the health and safety module itself could be beneficial. Or if you got a lot of paper flying around for expenses, expense management could do it. Where can you be saving costs? Most organizations, particularly if you've been on JD Edwards and other stuff for a long time, have third-party solutions. It could be integration solutions. It could be solutions that are used to tie the website back into JD Edwards. It could be forms software. Typically, if there's something that's outside of JD Edwards, it's worth investigating whether you can retire that and pick up the savings that you'll have by decommissioning for maintenance purposes. If you're on older unsupported of solutions or products, you might be paying premium support for it. If you are running in a non-virtualized manner, there could be savings in iron that you could be having. If you can look at running hosted, you could be saving on there as well, staff time and on the hardware side. Talk to the business. Find out where the efficiencies can be. Find out where their problems are. If they're not aware of it, they might not be aware that, for example, you could be putting a lot of capabilities on an iPad, giving them to the salespeople and letting them conduct business on site, do account reviews on site with their customers. Same thing with people on your procurement side. If they're out there going out and meeting with suppliers, they can be looking at their scorecarding, looking at upcoming requirements, and working out. You could have mobile for time entry, for monitoring work orders and managing work orders, and directly enacting work orders and finishing jobs while you're on site. Look at the technology side. We've worked with clients where even just saying to them simply, you know that you're still running on SQL Server or Windows Server 2004, and that is no longer supported. If you're a public company, your technology underpinnings are at risk. That's a business scenario that your CFO would likely want to know about and address. because it's his John Hancock on your financial statements. Again, the main thing here is think like the business, not like a technologist. If you're thinking like a technologist, think about how the technology can help the business. What do you need to include? Well, what's the objective? What are you looking to do as part of this? Is it just the technology foundation, or are you looking to extend? What benefits will you provide to the organization? What are the cost implications, current, future, and if there's some one-time spend for things like licensing? What non-investment risks are there? Things like deprecated or out of support items. Where are areas where you could be investing? And investing could be starting to work on mobile, doing the road tests on it with an eye to being able to roll that out more. What are the key considerations? Most often you'll hear this back from senior management. We are looking to expand. We are looking to acquire. We are looking to divest. We're looking for a 6% increase in our profitability. How can you help us out with that? What's the timeline estimate? Smaller is better. Longer is not quite as good. And what are the business resources that you're going to need to get there? So another quick break spot here. Any questions from the trick-or-treaters out there, Doug?
Actually, one, Mike. Pretty simple. What is the biggest reason for a project failure?
If I was, I'll give you my answer, then Doug, you can throw yours out there. My biggest one is not having management buy-in, and the substance to that is if you haven't gotten buy-in, you might not have presented it appropriately. But not having management buy-in and approval for the project and visibility. How about you?
I had thought the exact same thing. I mean, if you don't have that executive or management buy-in, priorities don't usually get set accordingly, and it just leads to trouble. So completely agree.
Cool. And thank you, whoever that question came from, because it's a beautiful lie into a couple of topics that we're going to get onto here. So thank you, Dr. McCarthy.
You're welcome. Back to the regular
show.
show.
Indeed. So how can you simplify your upgrade? Document your processes. Document your enhancements that you're looking for, things that you've done, and your BODs. You can't improve things if you don't know what you're doing right now. If you haven't already done so, build up your knowledge document. So that's the processes, but also why you're doing it. If you got test scripts from your last upgrade, awesome. If not, make sure you do them on your next one. Create a staffing and resource plan for it. And part of the thought on that is think of it not only in terms of where you are now, but in 3 years' time, if you continue to grow, what kind of skills will you need? Should you be getting to the point where you have BAs in your 3 main functional areas, and how can you use the upgrade to start to grow that? Stay current. It sounds simple, but the easiest way to make upgrades less intrusive are to be current. And make sure that you've documented all of the touch points into and out of JD Edwards. We've seen so often where the navel-gazing inwards to what you do in JD Edwards is great, and you get into testing, somebody raises their hand and says, what about the integration we have with our e-commerce site or the upload that we have to our benefits carriers? Have we looked at that? You don't want surprises like that coming up midway through the upgrade. So, do you have test scripts from last time? Have you captured your knowledge content in something like UPK? Make sure that your testing is sufficient so that you're not finding things out when you go live. And really that comes down to forcing errors and making sure you talk to the business people about everything that they do. This is a great chance to bring the knowledge up to speed in the organization and also the people. So have a plan, have the scripts, test for problems. There's a lot in terms of automation that's available right now. There's testing automation. The solutions in that area tend to be fairly not cheap. So if you're a larger organization, you can consider that. If it's smaller, maybe not so much. Same thing for script building, automation, and testing. That, not so bad. UPK, several other tools that are out there that can help with that. There's solutions like we offer with the Pac-Man one for package build automation. When you're going through an upgrade, you typically have to do that a fair bit. There's ways to make that simpler and make your CNC lives easier as well. So things to watch out for, tying into the last one. The most common risk factors and things that will impact the success of a project: lack of senior management buy-in, incomplete preparation for testing, getting to the point where you're starting to test and realize you really don't know what you need to or want to test. It's a bit of an issue. Scope management, and again, that ties back to senior management buy-in. Availability of business staff, well, guess what? That also ties back to senior management buy-in. We refer to it as having somebody with paycheck responsibility. So if you need to pull some people in and smooth things out, that's the person that can do it. You have the wrong skills and probably as importantly, the wrong attitude on the project. An upgrade or a significant project is not the time to put your new AP clerk or tools crib person on there. They don't know the business. They don't know JD Edwards. And the attitude, if they're not somebody that's looking to help improve it, don't bother. Poorly documented as-is processes. It's hard to figure out where the benefits can be if you don't know what you're doing right now. So if anything, if you're heading to an upgrade and there's uncertainty on that, take the time to document at least the key processes that are very important to the business first. Positive upgrade reinforcement. The planning should be the largest and the most important part. We've seen project plans we put together where if the client really isn't that ready for it and understanding as to what the art of the possible could be, there could be a 3-month planning session for a 4 to 5 month upgrade. While that sounds a bit excessive, what often comes out of that is it's the 4 to 5 month upgrade and a pretty nice shopping list for what the next one will be, and a great way of communicating back to the business about, and here's what the future can hold. Users want to know what you're going to do for them now, but also in the future. So mindset as well. If you're upgrading your skills, you're doing it by learning. If you're upgrading your wardrobe, you're doing it by buying new clothes. You don't upgrade by doing the same thing all the time. So again, look for ways to benefit the business. We've seen, and I know that there's a couple of people that are on this session that have presented on their upgrades or presented on Orchestrator or presented on UDOs at conferences. There's nothing we like better than seeing customers share the wealth, share the knowledge, and as a direct result of that, get networking opportunities. You're building your skills and capabilities and what the potential is outside your 4 walls, and that's wonderful. The last part on here is show appreciation for your team. You've asked them to be part of a process that will make your organization better. Thank them for it. Could be t-shirts, could be a team dinner. Very rarely is it a 3-week all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii, but do something for them. So post-project. So your upgrade's finished, everybody's happy, you're cracking open the wine and the bubbly and the cheese and the snacks and all that, hopefully in Hawaii. Well, you've just completed one turn of the business technology enablement wheel. Time to start planning for the next one. It's kind of like painting the bridge. You get to the end and you come back to the beginning and you should be starting again. Do a debrief. What went well? How do you make sure that happens again? What didn't go well? Put that on your risk factors for the next time so you can alleviate it. What's on the parking list? Start thinking about how you can address it. Talk to management. So what's next? What else from a technology side could be beneficial for them? They will not often be able to tell you what that is, but they will tell you what they're hearing from CIO forums, from their reading, from what they're hearing from the Gartner group, and from where their wishes are for the desires for the company are. Keep your ongoing process documentation crisp and going. You just pulled a team together to work on the upgrade project. It's great turning them back loose to their original business areas, if that's the case. Don't let them just fritter away there. Continue to involve the feet and the eyes into the business to help, for we're getting the next level of improvements. So those are your business analysts. Keep them motivated, keep them looking forward. If you don't, then make sure that your subject matter experts in the business are engaged and helping you move forward. This next slide is one that we've added in fairly recently just for some giggles, and we hope it's taken in that way. But so project humor, signs that your project is or will be in trouble. Your project manager cannot spell PMP. That's a bit of an issue. Your executive sponsor shows up for the steering committee meetings with a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he's not willing to share, or she. Your distribution team lead for the major upgrade just got promoted from the store crib lead hand, and he's been working for a total of 3 years. Your go-live date is set in concrete, and your budget, and neither of them really make sense. You ask management what the scope definition should be, and their answer was, well, whatever they need. The technical team is charged of doing the entire project. I mean, after all, the business is too busy. It's just technical stuff. Your project sponsor's nickname is Pitbull. The executive committee, when you're asking them for their thoughts on things, they don't have enough time to look at this technical stuff. Management believes that you really don't need outside help or skills upgrading. Users can just RTFM, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows what that means. And the finance lead on the project is the president of the Pessimist International Group. Each of these tie in humorously to points that we made on other slides, but I tell you, the last time I presented this at a user group in the U.S. a couple of weeks ago, I asked about 45 people in the room whether at least 2 or 3 of them applied to projects they've been on. Every single hand went up. So, comments and suggestions from clients. You can kind of read through these, but we've highlighted a couple of them. Senior management buy-in. So, tying back to that, couple below that, business leadership and ownership is crucial. The key word there is business leadership and ownership. Test, 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 and repeat. So there's a number of truths that are out there, understanding the landscape of the project, have the documented plan, make sure your go live is exactly like your practice go live so that you're dealing with reality as part of it. So when we do webinars, our intent is to educate and to get a connection with customers. We do like at the very end to just talk a little bit about ourselves and what we can do. So from an upgrade perspective, one of the things we offer is a pre-upgrade assessment. So when we're looking at this with customers, it's let's look at what you could be doing. What's the art of the possible? So before you get into your upgrade, let's look at what the upgrade can and should be. We do that as a fixed fee. We don't want to induce any kind of risk or concern, and that's including expenses. Typically, this process is a day or two. It's on site. Give a report back a couple of weeks afterwards. Hardware, software, modules, shady and non. It includes a first project plan, high-level investment, the resources needed internally and externally. So really, it's a bit of a roadmap that you can chew on. We look at, as we're doing it, things that can help to lighten the load, solutions that we're familiar with. We touched on DWS. There's a number that they have. If it's on the security side, it could be all out or Q software. Purge It from a data file archive and purging side. Pacman for package build automation. WAPMan, ScanMan for AP automation. A couple of quotes on the side from customers that we've worked with around the process and what we've done for them on that. So, in terms of team, yeah, certainly.
Before we on that, I know we're getting pretty close on time, so we do have a fair amount of questions that have come in for the last one.
Awesome.
So
let's do the questions before getting to this. Sure. Thanks, Doug.
Great. Yep. Okay, first one. Question on if there are system enhancements for performance, things like UBE bottlenecks, fact client, even if used through a web browser. I'm not quite sure what that is referring to. So if you want to maybe clarify on what that second part of that question was, we can take that. But generally, are there enhancements related to system performance? Is the meat of that question.
Okay. I know with BI Publisher, there's multi-queue that has been built in. There have been some process efficiencies, but probably as importantly, there's been a bunch of tools that have been built in there now, including alert, analyze, act type pages that allow you to monitor performance and at least give you the insight as to where things might need to be tweaked. And that's for batch processes, interactive processes, etc. Doug, you're a little bit more technical than me, the accountant. Are there other things that you've seen that would make sense to touch on as well?
But what came to mind for me is a couple of changes in how things are stored, like for attachments not being stored in the blog. Now you can move those into the database if you want. And same with the personalizations where it's not a customization anymore. Things along those lines. But maybe in the interest of time, we can definitely put together a list of some of the more technical things and send that off as well in a post-webinar.
Okay, cool.
Event. Again, just being conscious of time. Another question. You were talking about the changes for menus, and so it's what about the standard menus? Are they easier to build and promote between environments?
If we're talking standard menus in terms of E1 page-based ones, yeah, I think they are. There's been some very nice enhancements to E1 Page Composer. If it's the classic menus, what we've seen when we've been working with customers, I don't know if there's anything there that has made that significantly easier. And definitely what we've seen between that and things like the enterprise search and having that enabled for the tasks, we're seeing more and more customers migrating to that to simplify the tasks for users. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not, but Doug, if you have other thoughts on it, by all means.
Nope, I think I'm with you on that one. And again, for any of the questions, I know we're short on time. If please put in a clarification or feel free to reach out to us after the fact, or we can reach out to you to make sure we did answer the questions. And if we don't get to anyone, we'll certainly do that after the webinar as well. Next question, Mike. This is more about the personal side of things or team members on the project. Will it be so much of a risk factor to bring in internal skills with no JDE experience for the purpose that they learn on the job?
I would consider bringing them in to help with user acceptance testing. I would categorically not bring them in to be part of the core upgrade team. They don't know enough about how JD Edwards works. You'll be spinning a lot of your wheels on it. That would be my short, blunt, and honest answer.
Yeah, I think kind of relating it back to the need for test scripts, your test script should be good enough so that you can give it to someone with no JDE experience, and they should be able to walk through the process. So that's going to, one, teach them kind of that on-the-job learning of what the process is, and get some of your testing accomplished as well. So I would agree, Mike, that's a good area for them to be involved in.
Yep.
Next question, is there any built-in functionality in the most current version of JDE for source control?
Ooh, that's well above my own personal level of propeller spinning. So my assumption there is it's being able to look at an object and compare the newest version with what is in place right now. I believe there are, but Doug, I'm not sure if you have more information on that.
I think I'm gonna go with a pass and go with we will definitely get back to you with an answer on that.
Okay, so we'll take
when we're talking about source control. Yeah, exactly. And a follow-up question on what is source control. So as you're checking objects in and out through OMW, making changes, being able to track maybe what the changes are, what the status is, taking timestamps on when things change, etc. So if that's not what was meant by source control by the original question, please let me know. But that's where I was taking that question. All right, so Mike, maybe I'll hand it back to you if you want to just go through that slide. I want to just make sure we covered. I know there are a few repeat or similar questions, but I'll give it another look while we have our last minute here.
Okay, just a little bit about ourselves. Probably first and foremost, we're huge Quest supporters. We're at every conference that there is and a lot of the regional user groups as well. So we're strong believers in the community. Doug and I probably spend a fair amount of time just connecting customers with other customers that can help each other out. Beyond that, we've been in JD Edwards for coming up on 22 years now. So upgrades, migrations, SWOT consulting, training, extensions, that's what we do day in and day out. We've also, over the years, taken the time to partner with what we believe are some best-in-breed additional tools for JD Edwards. Purge It for archive and purge, JD Edwards World and E1. ScanMan, which is a very nice AP automation solution that is built for and built in Enterprise One. Pacman for package build object, or for package build automation and object lifecycle management, and self-service password reset. If you've got a lot of users and they're filling your help desk tickets with, can you change my password? That could be a great solution. Dimension Swift Test is a great product for setting up and managing your testing right within Enterprise One. And DWS has a number of other solutions that can help out with upgrades and ongoing management. We're very proud of our BI Publisher packs. A lot of customers want to use BI Publisher, but when they get past the PowerPoint that says it's easy to do, some of the complexity that you want in things like purchase orders, invoices, payroll checks, could be signatures, multi-languages, multi-logos, floating totals, floating sections, terms and conditions, all that sort of stuff. We've taken the time to pre-build forms for the most commonly used and have them at a couple of different levels. And they've made a world of difference for a lot of customers in switching over from Create Form, Transform, Optio, Formscape to BI Publisher. We've also been a partner with RF Smart for, probably 17 or 18 years now. So if you're in manufacturing or distribution, if you're not using RF technology right now, normal rule of thumb from most analysts is your payback is well less than a year, and it gives huge efficiencies in your processes. So there are other solutions that we work with in organizations, such as iLearn ERP for training and for ad hoc user learning for coming up to speed on capabilities within JD Edwards, and other ones as well that aren't mentioned there. So part of the takeaway with all of this is don't be afraid of a 9.2 upgrade. There's lots of capabilities that are out there. There's lots of lessons learned and skills and information that is available through the community, through TeamCain, that can help this out. We hope we have an opportunity to continue the dialogue with you. Both Doug and my contact information is up there. As a total aside, we did record the webinar today. So if there's others in your organization that would have liked to have attended but were busy, stuffing trick-or-treat bags or getting their costume ready, pop us a line when we reach out to you as a follow-up to this. Let us know. We'll send you the link. If you want to copy the presentation to be able to work with internally and pull some nuggets away from, awesome. And please, we're very friendly, non-cheesy salespeople. We're going to reach out to you and just say, what you think, anything we can do for you. Be thrilled to hear back from you, and just let us know if there's anything that we can do that could make your life and your business's life easier in the JD Edwards world. So that's it for now. Have a spectacular rest of your day. Thank you for taking the time to share some time this afternoon. And Doug, I guess we can keep this open for another little bit in case there's any last questions that come in.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So usually, Doug, do you sing at the end? When we're just waiting for people to finish up, or?
Normally I dance, but luckily this isn't a video webinar, so people don't have to experience that.
Oh, and you don't have your webcam up and running, right? Darn.
Or I've definitely got the piece of tape over it for instances like this.
Accident, I'm sure. So,
A couple of questions that had rolled in that I just answered directly. We do have resources throughout Canada, specifically in Quebec province, but we can definitely follow up with you on specific needs there. And then any details on pricing for workshops. Again, as Mike said, we can follow up with you to discuss the details on that. And it does usually have to do with the scope, how many modules, how much, if you're centralized all in one location, or if there's a need to visit maybe different plants or something along those lines. So we can definitely walk through those details as well.
Yeah, and if it's just financials or you do manufacturing as well and you want to put in payroll or, yeah, all things that tie to the scope.
Right. So, Mike, I am actually going to also jump off. I'm sure you'll be happy to know that I am busy and need to get on the next call here, which I'm a few minutes late for. But I will let you monitor the questions. I think we're set for now. If anyone has that last minute thing that they want to pop in, but great job as usual, and I'm sure I'll talk to you before the end of the day.
No doubt, usually the case. All right, thank you, good sir, and have fun at your next call.
Thanks.
All righty, so for those that are still on here, we're coming up at about 10 past the hour. I'm going to give it another minute or so, see if there's any more questions that might come in, and if not, then we will close it down and wish everybody a very, very happy Halloween.